Imagine ballistic missiles being shot into our country from Central America. Imagine the impact. Imagine sirens going off 10 times a day, 20 times a day. Hurry up, run to protection, run to the closest parking lot. Imagine having building codes in your country where you're required to build safe rooms. Imagine living this way day in and day out, where you can't take your kids to the park, where the schools are closed, where they can't have recess. Imagine the psychological impact. In other words, Israel or the United States, we don't want to just exist, we want to enjoy our lives. We're talking about nuclear weapons, intercontinental ballistic missiles by a country that keeps talking about wanting to destroy we, the people of the United States, that has killed over 600 of our soldiers, maimed thousands, that was behind killing all those Marines in the Marine barrack in Lebanon, that was behind destroying 2 of our embassy and killing American citizens, and has threatened and attempted to kill our president. You know, one of those acts is typically enough for an act of war. I don't really understand what's going on in our country today. I mean, I get it, but I reject it. The vast majority of the American people, every poll shows, backs Israel. But the vast majority of people who have platforms also back Israel. There seems to be a cabal, perhaps it's growing, of individuals who seem to think Israel's dragging us into war with Iran. Iran keeps talking about destroying us, not just Israel. But let's step back and look at this just for a second. Do we want Iran to have nuclear weapons with intercontinental ballistic missiles? When the chief, the supreme Nazi, when he says things like, well, you know what? When we say death to America, that's not just a slogan, that's a policy. This is a 7th century throwback. These are primitives. These are barbarians with 21st century equipment, technology. It's just, to me, it's almost stunning. I think of any president, whether it would be FDR and Truman, whether it be Ike or Kennedy, even LBJ and others, Ronald Reagan for sure, not so much Obama and Biden. We saw what they were, pacifists, weak, appeasers, and they helped brought us to this point. But what Donald Trump is doing is heroic, is historic. And by the way, across the board, whether it's our economy, the border, and so forth and so on, and he's no different here. And he's looked at the playing field. He's looked at everything that's going on. He's not an interventionist. Peace through strength. It's not peace through death, peace through appeasement, peace through isolationism. It's peace through strength. In his first term, he took out Soleimani. The Iranians viewed that as an act of war. Soleimani was key. He removed him. He's never been an isolationist. To be an isolationist is to be on a suicide watch. You're going to surrender the Middle East to the terrorists? And I would ask those of you who are faithful Christians and Jews and so forth and so on, you really want our holy places to be destroyed? Because they're going to blow them up the way they destroyed the Buddhist temples and the Buddhist symbols and so forth in Afghanistan. The Taliban just went through there and destroyed the entire history of the place. What do you think? What do you think these terrorists are going to do? And do you think they're going to stop at the Israelis? They're not building intercontinental ballistic missiles for the Israelis. For us. Why would we even take a chance? We wouldn't tolerate this if this were Cuba or Nicaragua or Venezuela or any of these places, would we? Imagine having terrorists with strongholds and ballistic missiles in Canada or Mexico. Would we wait and say, look, no more long wars, no more forever wars, no more wars? We'd say, oh, we better take care of business here. It just is stunning to me, some of the ideology that goes on. Now, I understand people don't want to hear this. That's all well and good, but things are taking place and they're swirling around us, and there's only so much we can talk about when it comes to the Joe Biden and his mental problems. He's not even president anymore. I'm not opposed to pursuing all that, but we're talking about life and death. We're talking about real things. We're talking about nuclear weapons, and that's what Donald Trump understands. That's what you understand. That's what I understand. So there's some interesting questions about the weapons that are being used, whether Israel might run out of weapons. How many missiles can they possibly have on this Iron Dome system? And will they be able to outlast the ballistic missiles that Iran has? Iran has, or had, 3,000 of these missiles. If Iran had not been attacked, in a few months, Iran would have 10,000 of these missiles, absolutely overwhelming any defensive systems that Israel has or any country on the face of the earth would have. And these missiles, they're not this. They're the size of a yellow school bus. And they have massive impacts. They can take out an entire apartment building. We've seen this in Tel Aviv and other parts of Israel. So it's not, okay, they don't have nuclear weapons, but they have ballistic missiles, and 10,000 ballistic missiles will destroy a country. Imagine ballistic missiles being shot into our country from Central America, into LA, into New York, into Chicago, into any of our cities, or suburbs, or rural areas. Imagine the impact. Imagine sirens going off 10 times a day, 20 times a day. Hurry up. Run to protection. Run to your underground protection. Run to the closest parking lot, underground parking lot. Imagine having building codes in your country where you're required to build safe rooms. And if you're an apartment building, the apartment building complex is required to build a safe room under the apartment building. Imagine living this way day in and day out, where you can't take your kids to the park, where the schools are closed, where they can't have recess. Imagine the psychological impact. In other words, Israel or the United States, we don't want to just exist, although that's important. We want to enjoy our lives as a free people. And these barbarians, these primitives thrown back to the 7th century, this is how they live, this is what they do. And they believe their God tells them to destroy the West. I have an entire section in my new book on this, on power, which I'll get to in another day or so, about the mindset of the Islamists. It's not like yours. It's not like yours. You see, Judaism and Christianity come at this from a totally different perspective, as do other religions, than Islamism. And Islam has not gone through the Reformation process. That's why these people in Iran, this regime, they're stuck in the 7th century. That's their mindset. Kill or be killed. You have to meet them where they exist. They're unpersuadable. We've spent 47 years negotiating with them, trying to persuade them to leave us alone, to leave Israel alone, to leave the free world alone. They won't do it. And during the times we've talked to them, especially in the last 4 or 5 months, they've said, yes, 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 we understand, we agree with you, while they've been proceeding in the processing of nuclear material for nuclear weapons. And I think that's where Donald Trump said, you know what, enough is enough. We've tried everything else.
For all this and much more, sign up for Levin TV.